I recognize the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Administrator Power, I am mindful of your time. We are well beyond your hard stop. Do you have time for 5 more minutes?
For you, of course.
No,
You've waited all this time.
And I could do it privately with you if you wish.
No, of course.
I think you've been
please.
incredibly patient. Thank you for your work, for the work of your whole team around the world. And of course, a lot of our focus today is in Gaza, is in the plight between Israel and Hamas war and what is going on in Gaza. We have an expression here I associate myself with, the good gentleman's remarks. I want to be really clear. I do not associate myself with some of the remarks that I have heard this afternoon regarding UNRWA. To me, it shows a real misunderstanding of the work that they do. I was there in February. I was there also in November. So twice since this war began, we met with UNRWA officials. At that time, in February, they had lost 147 members of their team killed in this conflict. The number's now over 200, as I understand it. And so that horror was brought so vividly to life following Israel's killing of 7 World Central Kitchen workers in those 3 vehicles. Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. But to call for the defunding of UNRWA, they are angels on the ground. I am hypercritical of the alleged 12 or 15 who may have been infiltrating as Hamas, who may have participated in the October 7th horrendous, barbaric attack. But you don't throw everybody and all the good work out. Because I want to ask you, if we continue this pause, if the world said we will not help you, UNRWA, your however thousands of workers who are on the ground who keep coming to work even when their families, whole families are killed, what will happen with famine in Gaza if we just shut it down? No more UNRWA. By the way, they're not educating. We know that. They can't even do that now. They have incredibly important vaccines and medical aid to be a part of, but the essentialness of food and water. What happens if we continue this disinformation campaign of defund UNRWA?
Well, first, thank you for bringing some facts into the conversation that I probably should have raised before, including just the horrific loss of life for those who work for UNRWA, and in general, more than 220 aid workers killed by IDF or in IDF military operations to this point, including most recently, of course, the World Central Kitchen colleagues, devastatingly. And thank you also for reminding us all, but UNRWA is an organization in Gaza alone of 13,000 people.
Right.
And the vast majority of those people have, not been propagating hate, but have been actually trying to educate young people. The literacy rate in Gaza, I think, is something like 99%.
Astounding.
It's one of the most, I should say, Gaza, West Bank. It's one of the most effective literacy efforts, in any of the places that USAID works. In terms of what would happen if the whole thing shut down, right now, it looks like other countries are stepping up to avert that scenario. But, I just cannot overstate how chaotic and how horrific the conditions in Gaza are. You've spoken to them. The visuals speak to the level of destruction. There's no workaround for the infrastructure that they provide now. After the war, when there's a new administration of Gaza, if that comes about, obviously that's itself extremely complicated. The question of who is providing education as they try to rebuild virtually everything from scratch in the education and the health sector, some of these questions will be addressed. But right now, there is no way to avert large-scale famine without relying on the humanitarian backbone that has been UNRWA for decades and that remains UNRWA today. That doesn't mean, again, we are going to follow the law. We are going to work through other partners. But even, as I started to say this earlier, even the government of Israel, which had banned UNRWA participation in convoys, because of the food crisis and U.S. engagement, I hope, has now decided that UNRWA can in fact be part of convoys going to the north because they recognize there's just no other way.
Right. And I want to commend to anybody to please meet with the director of UNRWA, who is stationed in Rafah, a 20-plus year U.S. military veteran. I don't know how people stay at this kind of work with the risks that they are taking, but they are there. He was very clear about that which is their challenges on the ground. And I want to go back to where you began, which is it is incumbent upon us. It is malpractice that we have not passed the National Security Supplemental. I'm urgent on it for Ukraine, of course for your continued work with USAID, but humanitarian aid both for Israel and for Palestine, for Gazans, for the West Bank. I thank you for your work.
Thank you.